What's up, Instagram? What's up, Facebook? Live right now. Derek Jonhson, also known as Rattle Trap 1776. So there's a ton of fake profiles, so make sure you're following the correct pages. The best way to find all my correct accounts are on my link tree, linktr.ee /1776 nation. So be careful how you typing that in. But Linktree, linktr.ee /1776 nation. That's how you find all of my correct accounts. So yes, the news is true. I have a brand new book out. It's called The Deplorable Pilgrims. It's about liberal hypocrisy, how they don't live on principles, they live on justifications, and none of their justifications makes any sense whatsoever. That's why Tanzania, El Salvador, Uganda, all these nations look sweeter and sweeter day by day to send their rear ends to, because they are the dumbest people on the planet, liberals. So just going to go over a little bit of stuff, and then going to talk a little bit more about how special operations operate, like part 2 of my book, all right, and show you a lot of new people are following me. So if you've heard me before, a lot of you have, just roll with it, right? Because a lot of new people are here, and I want to kind of paint that picture of why it would look this way, how it would look this way, and also why they had to do it this way, and what's cool about it. It's nothing to fear because you're going through it anyway, and it's out of your control, and it's a good kind of out of your control. It's not a bad out of your control, so nothing to fear. Anyone out there preaching fear, talking fear, making you fretful, fearful, then you're listening to the wrong people. I've been making a joke here lately, but it's not a joke either at the same time. There's an old country song that Johnny Lee used to sing called "Looking for Love in All the Wrong Places." Well, a lot of you are looking for truth in all the wrong places and all the wrong faces. So it's real simple. Your friends and your family, you tell them to get plugged in to Derek Jonhson, plugged in to Rattle Trap 1776, and then the people that I'm on with, we have vetted. All right, now they could always slip up somewhere down the road. I'm not wishing that on them, but can happen because people are people. But most everybody I've been on with the last 3 years have been vetted. They're good people. I understand also when people say, "Why aren't more veterans stepping up?" Well, I'm sorry. A lot of veterans don't want to be on the screen. A lot of veterans don't want to deal with all this, this, and then the keyboard warriors. But some veterans don't know what's going on either, so that's on them. We can't make them step up to the plate if they want to. So there's a lot of things you just don't need to worry about, just like anything else in life. Too many people are worried on things you can't control. Stop, all right? Focus on the things you can sink your teeth into, that you can put your mind onto, that you can put positivity and, your, whatever it is. Like, I tell people, find your niche. So, what you've been seeing lately, all right? So, look, I got a choreographed podcast today, but you've been seeing all the libtards out there and their, no kings protest. First off, one of the hypocrisies they do is they'll say something like this. They'll say, like the Venezuelan strikes. Right now there's strikes on Venezuelan vessels. They'll say that's law enforcement's job. Well, that's law enforcement's role and duty and jurisdiction. No, it's not. The Caribbean Sea that's not law enforcement. That's not Chicago Police's jurisdiction. That's not Miami Police's jurisdiction. That's not the Sheriff Department's jurisdiction. That's how stupid a liberal is. That is why if this guy right here was the president, I would deport them. I would deport liberals. Yeah, I get the criminals first, but then close second, be a libtard. See ya. One-way ticket out of here. You have no way to get back. You're going to Tanzania. I hope you watched enough Survivor episodes to build you a fire and to cook you some food, because you won't be coming back here. And there won't be no instruction manual on how to survive when I would send their rear ends out of here. All right, so law enforcement. They'll say it's law enforcement's job to handle the strikes on Venezuela. Well, let's just play devil's advocate for a moment. I can play devil's advocate and just it's hard to because I feel like I'm losing IQ when I do this. But if it was law enforcement's role and duty and jurisdiction, then why hasn't law enforcement dealt with it before? Why are there history of drug trafficking? So see, either way you want to slice their pie, one, it tastes like doo-doo, and two, it ain't really pie because it is doo-doo, and three, it's no pie because there's no foundation there. There's nothing that they could put that mold into because they don't have a foundation. Liberals are that stupid. And if there happens to be a liberal that stumbles on this, you are dumber than dirt. So, then they'll flip around and they'll say, here's the other thing they'll do. So they say it's law enforcement's job to handle the Venezuelan strikes, but then when the president actually enforces the laws that have been on the books, on paper, longer, way before 2017, then he's a dictator, a fascist, authoritarian, and all these other things. That is how stupid a liberal is. And they should be deported. Just like that. If you're going to call me a fascist, then I'll be a fascist. And your ass will be out of here quicker than a cat can lick its own rear end. So it's kind of like when people accuse you of something, sometimes you might as well just do it because they won't think anything else until you're that. Well, that's what I would do. And you'd be deported. You'd be out of here. You would have a reason to call me a fascist. So what's stupid about a liberal calling a president enforcing the law and then turn around and saying that a Venezuelan strike in the Caribbean Sea is law enforcement's duty? What's stupid about a liberal is that here they are, they claim they have a First Amendment, just like you and I. They claim that. And oh, if you step on their First Amendment, oh, you're violating my rights. I'm like, do you realize where your First Amendment came from? This is America's problem right here. If you Republicans, conservatives, patriots, MAGA, everybody, if y'all didn't stand up, and I say y'all meaning like I already know who I am and what I do, but I'm putting it on you saying this. If you didn't stand up and fight, guess what would have happened? They'd have just kept snowballing. The swamp would have kept growing. And they still are fighting us in another kind of manner. It's still a war no matter what. So it's a war, it's a fight, it's a battle. So you have to stand up and fight if you don't want the alternative. So it's already a fight. The line's already in sand. You got to decide what side you want to be on. Now, they're not really fighting. They're nagging and griping and fussing and complaining. They're not fighting, but it would have always been like that. So there had to be a divider put in the sand and go, okay, when we get across this line and we reestablish what America's supposed to look like, the more they bark, there's not that many of them, but when they bark, say, all right, you bark one more time, I'm going to put a muzzle on your face. All right? And if you find a way to yap under that muzzle, I'm sending you out of here. All right? See, their freedom is established by us. Then we have reached such a place where the military is such a dominant force that keeps those freedoms thriving that they're not even appreciative. They don't appreciate and they don't respect how they have their freedom. They want it and they demand it, but they don't respect and appreciate how they have their freedom. That's the United States military. That's from veterans like myself and my family, etc. They don't respect the military. They don't appreciate it, but they demand that they have their freedom. They demand that they have their freedom of speech. And they don't realize that the foundation that gave them that is the foundation of what we're working with right now. And that's what's cleaning out all these evil people. They cannot identify evil. Some of them are already, but the ones that are just absolutely ignorant, incompetent, and dumb, but we're letting them bark, that's why you have to be stronger. Even if you're the sweetest little grandma out there and you have the softest voice, find a way in your way to tell a liberal to shut their pie hole. You have to stand up and tell them. We have to get back on top of this to maintain and sustain this in the future, long after 2030, long after President Trump, long after these days. We have to maintain and sustain this. And some of you haven't found your voice yet. Some of you haven't quelled some of this. Now, some of it's strategic, some of it's pre-planned, some of these protests are part of special operations, some of them. But there's some out there that aren't, and there's some low-level hanging fruit that we have to get control of and say, you have your freedom. You can be a steer, you can be a queer, but you're not going to be it at the schoolhouse. We're not going to fund it. You can be it at your house. Ain't nobody going to come tell you how to live your life. But you're going to learn to keep your mouth shut. You have your freedom due to people like me. We're not telling you how to live. We're not telling you how you're going to live. But you're not going to do it anymore. You and your little charades out there, y'all have had your time. It ain't happening no more. So see, they bark something they don't even know their own history. So that's why I always do a history lesson. The military. Our founders started a war. That's why I named my books The Midnight Rider Rides Again, because the Midnight Rider, the one that was known, he wasn't the only one. And women back then were Midnight Riders as well. So shout out to the Patriot ladies. But the Midnight Rider Rides Again. Paul Revere was the most known name that came out of that bunch, but there were other Midnight Riders. April the 18th in the wee hours of the morning into April the 19th, the Midnight Riders. Right? And April the 19th, the Battle of Lexington and Concord kicked off everything. So our founders started a war before they even had a Declaration of Independence, a piece of paper that says what we're fighting for. They didn't even have an established military. They kicked off the war and started kicking the British's rear end before they had any kind of establishment of a military or a declaration on paper. So you have the Army, my branch. You have the Army first, June the 14th, 1775. 16 days later, 2 weeks and 2 days later, you had the very first war articles, June the 30th, 1775. Does that not, can we do the math real quick? June 14th, June 14th and June the 30th, 1775. All right. July 4th, 1776. Can we do some Alabama hillbilly math here? Then let's do June 14th and June the 30th, 1775. September the 17th, 1787. Now let's go back and do this. June 14th, June 30th, 1775. December the 15th, 1791. Bill of Rights. I mean, this is stuff that makes you go, do I have all my IQ still? And I'm not forgetting the Navy, and I'm not forgetting the Marine Corps. I'm not forgetting you guys and gals out there with those branches. October 13th, they just had their birthday with the Navy, 250. The Marine Corps is coming up, November the 10th. All right, our very first flag was December the 3rd, all in 1775. It's not that difficult. This nation was founded. Our military was founded before the Declaration, before the Constitution, before the Bill of Rights. Then our founders declared independence 7 years before the war ended. Sign a declaration. We're going to be independent. And they signed it in present tense. You got to go back and read the Declaration. And think about them signing what they signed and writing what they wrote in the terminology and the context which they wrote it 7 years before the war ended. They're declaring this is what we're going to have when this is over. That is why this is so brilliant. That is also how this shows how stupid liberals are. And we can't let them keep barking. Now, I'm not inciting violence whatsoever, but a good punch to the mouth to some of these people would feel good. I'm not even going to lie. They're that stupid. And we need all these little independent people running around with their little camcorders to stop interviewing these people. When you give them a voice and when you give them a platform, and all these people out there, you drama-loving people that just share all that. Oh, you'll share all that, but my shares won't be like that. Oh, go figure. Americans love you some damn drama. Boy, do y'all love you some drama. Y'all share that. Oh, look at this freak show right here, looking like a clown, riding a horse, you know, half horse, half clown. Oh, you share that, boy. Ooh, we make that go viral. Libtards, man, they're the dumbest people on the planet. And too many people are still giving them a face, a voice, and a platform. All you little independent investigative journalists or whatever you call yourselves out there, you're trash too. You're just as trash for going out there and filming these people. Stop. Stop giving them a platform. Stop giving that. You're feeding into negativity. You're feeding into drama. You're feeding into propaganda. You're not an investigative journalist. You're a social media whore, and you want your platform to go viral where people can come see you do more stupid stuff that don't matter to this nation. So see, that's why people can't even listen to the president. You don't even listen to the commander-in-chief. You can't even know it's a special operation, strategic operation, because you're so focused on drama and propaganda and negativity and things that are irrelevant that you can't even listen to the president. You can't even listen to the commander-in-chief, the wartime president. You're not even listening to him. And then you don't even know how to combat liberals because you don't listen to your own commander-in-chief. The man you claim to all love and support, you can't combat any of these people because you don't even know what to say to them. You don't even know how to combat them intellectually. When he says it was an invasion. So like the governor of Illinois, right? Now this is all pre-planned, all strategic, every aspect of it. Everything you've been watching, that 45-47, everything you see, press conference has all been pre-recorded. Every aspect of it. All of it. That is exactly what you're watching. But for the sake of, when we're breaking this down, when you heard the governor of Illinois up there saying stuff about, you know, he can't do this unless there's a rebellion. There's been a rebellion. There's been an invasion. And this all happened way back. Every bit of those laws and orders were put into place in 2020. Article 1, Section 9, Clause 2, United States Constitution. The writ of habeas corpus. I have multiple laws and orders all outlined in all these books that show you where this happened. Liberals and Republicans looking alike out there. Y'all talk about the Constitution all the time. You can't name one thing from the Constitution. Liberals over there talking about we're a democracy. Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution, Republic. Nowhere in our founders' documents is the word democracy in a good manner. It's not even in the Declaration of Independence. It's not even in the Constitution. And then the only place you find it written, the word democracy, is in the Federalist Papers, number 10 and number 14 specifically, how dangerous a democracy is. Written by whom? James Madison. Who's James Madison? The author of the Constitution and the author of the what? The Bill of Rights. Right? So how do liberals have a First Amendment when they don't even know their foundation and they sit here and use the term democracy over and over and over again? See, when you hear President Trump use the word democracy, they're trolling the deep state. They're talking about, oh, yes, I'm most definitely a threat to democracy. Because we're not a democracy. We want that democracy destroyed because they established a democracy. From 1871 to 2016, the deep state established a democracy. That is what the swamp was. That's how they were operating. So yes, you want it destroyed. They established their own, though. The United States of America, we the people, are still a republic. But they, the deep state, the swamp, Washington, D.C., had established their own democracy. And we got all these liberals out there who think that that's what we are. We're not. They don't have an appreciation, not one, respect or appreciation for our foundation, our origin, and our history. And they don't even know how they have their First Amendment. They don't have a First Amendment. When my First Amendment trumps theirs, all pun intended, they don't have one. That is how that works. That is how Marbury versus Madison 1803 works. So you always have to know your history, always. The three branches of government were established in the order in which they were established on purpose. The legislative branch writes the laws, passes the laws. The executive branch enforces the laws. The judicial branch interprets the laws. Guess what? Who votes on them? We the people vote in the legislative branch. We the people vote in the president, the vice president. The judicial branch is appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate. So when the judicial branch is overstepping their boundaries, it's up to whom? To impeach them. We vote in the legislative and we vote in the president. So when all of these are not doing what we the people want, but when 85%, 90%, it was way up there. When 90, we'll go with 90. We'll just round off. Probably 95. But we'll go with 90% of population you don't know any of your history. You don't know any of your origin. You don't know any of your foundation. You don't know any of your history. And you dang sure don't know how they work. You dang don't know anything about the three branches of government. You don't know how they operate and function. Then what do we have? We have a problem, don't we? Yes, we do. So you don't want to look like a liberal if you're a Republican, conservative, patriot, but you don't tell some veteran who's sitting here telling you military laws, military orders, military regulations, military customs, strategic plans, strategic operations, special plans, special operations. You don't go say, oh, that's a bunch of hogwash too. You're also looking like a stupid liberal. So you all look the same when you're saying that. And I don't know who people are, but I hear it out there. That's why it had to look this way. That's why someone up here that knew all the links to the deep state and knew how they function everywhere, all the way from top to bottom, had to take over. It had to look this way because so many Americans on both sides of the aisle look atrocious in each sector, depending on what you're saying and doing. You look like a bunch of toddlers in adult meat suits. And you act like it. Invasion. President Trump said over and over and over again, we've been invaded. Our gravest threats are not abroad, they're within. He's telling you, he has told you over and over and over again. So see, you Republicans, conservatives, patriots, MAGA, you don't need to be looking like the liberals. But there's certain things that you say, a lot of you out there, that looks just like them. It's just all you got to do is just swap out the verbiage. There's most definitely been an invasion, but the invasion was from the whom? The deep state, the swamp. Why did so many Republicans chant, drain that swamp? You don't even know what you're looking at. That is exactly what's taking place. So Article 1, Article 2, Article 3. Article 1 is your legislative, Article 2 is your executive, Article 3, judicial. So all of these things, so 2017 to 2021, you watch the legislative branch be reset on its foundation, like the Declaration of Independence describes and prescribes. 2021 to 2025, executive branch was reset. That's why there was a government in exile and a puppet government. All World War II tactics, all strategies and tactics. If it sounds old fogey to you, far-fetched, it's because you just never heard of it. But it don't mean it don't exist. Right now, 2025 to 2029 is a resetting of the judicial branch. That's why a judge blocks this, and a judge does this, and a judge that, and a judge this, appeals court that, appeals court this, district court this, district court that. It's court, 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 judge, judge, judge. All during this time period. You're watching the resetting of the judicial branch. All prescribed and described in the Declaration of Independence. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations become destructive of these ends, it is their right to throw off such government. That's what you're watching. So when you hear all these no kings, you want to know how to put them in their place intellectually. Because we don't have to forcefully. That's why everything was done the way it was done. From a top down this time. Good guys on top with a plan. Strategic plan. Alright. So that's why, again, you need to know when you hear the no kings. All you got to do is, if you know someone out there, this is how you put them in their place. You show them the laws and orders. You say, well, you check. It depends on who it is to you. You chastise them in a good way, or you may be playful with them somehow, with verbiage-wise. It just depends. But the no kings thing, you go, okay, well, so have you read the laws? Have you read Joint Publication 3-57? Have you read the Special Operations Command publication? So I'm going to pull up something and read it to you while we're here. I've read it to you before, and I can read it without looking at it, but I'm going to read it word for word. That way I don't slip up. And then when you go over and look it up, those of you who have initiative, you'll see it with your own eyes. You go to the 2016 Unconventional Warfare Pocket Guide, Special Operations. Go to page 10. It says, Figure 2 below depicts the typical activities conducted by an insurgency or resistance movement. Most or all of the represented activities will be conducted by a successful resistance or insurgency, regardless of whether the United States government makes the policy decision to support it. Now, see, that's telling you right there. You hear anybody out there saying that it's unlawful and it's illegal, that the military can't come in and can't do this and can't. That right there just told you. Special operations. Most or all of the represented activities in this pyramid that I've shown you before on my pages for a revolution and a resistance movement will be conducted by a successful resistance or insurgency, regardless. Underline that, bold that, underline that, circle that word, regardless of whether the United States government makes the policy decision to support it. That right there tells you the military is separate from the federal government, which we know that in the military. We've always known that. And also our foundation. Thank you, God. Every one of you real patriots and you real MAGA and you real conservatives and real Republicans should be saying, thank you, God, for our foundation. That our military was established in this nation first. Our military was established before any legislation put on paper. Our military. Then it says this. United States government support to resistance, which is unconventional warfare. It puts that in not parentheses, but it puts 2 dashes beside it, meaning same thing as you would do in a parentheses. It says United States government support to resistance is initiated by either a presidential finding or an executive order. Now I'm going to read another thing from Special Operations, where it's a little bit more layman's. Under the umbrella of the United States Special Operations Command and the United States Army Special Operations Command core activities, unconventional warfare remains the core task and organizing principle for a U.S. Army Special Forces. Unconventional warfare involves efforts of activities conducted to enable a resistance movement, insurgency, or opposition movement to remove an established government, governing authority, or occupying power. I mean, you can't get any clearer than that whatsoever. And it tells you specifically whether or not the United States government makes a policy decision to support. Doesn't matter. So what's awesome about that, for you, the people out there, what's awesome is the fact that there's nothing they can do to stop it. And once everything's cleaned out and we go through all the hiccups, the bumps, the bruises, what you think is real, which is not, it's all choreographed, it's all in a blueprint, it's all pre-planned, it's all strategic. Everything you're watching is already pre-recorded. Every press conference you see, pre-recorded. Everything. And we're going to get to that in a minute. I'm going to break all that down, but just while we're getting there, I'm going to go through some examples first, and then we're going to get there. But everything you're watching, and you should thank God for that, because when we get through all that, those bumps, those bruises, those hiccups, what you thought was a bump, bruise, and hiccup from a real time, what it felt like, once we get through all that, it's going to lead to one question, one and one only. Do you want to go back? And if you say yes, you should be deported, because it's going to clean out every aspect from top to bottom, all the way down. And it's going to expose all these things that you've been doing your whole life that was fraudulent. Income tax, for one of them. Fraudulent. All right. So when they expose all these things, and they flip over and they get everything established in place, that's going to be the, the amendment, or whatever you want to look at it, anything and everything that had to be flipped. When you get the good portion and it starts being enacted and put into place, and you see all the results of that fruit, you shouldn't want to go back. All right, so let's look at Venezuela, for example. Venezuela. All right, Venezuela is Executive Order 13692 from Yo Mama Obama, Osama Yo Mama Obama. That's my nickname for Obama. That's not a President Trump executive order. That was an Obama executive order from 2015. That was another executive order they were going to let run for 30, 40, 50, 60 years, like they did every other executive order. So when you've heard President Trump say, I've ended 8 wars in 8 months, it's all, every one of them has been an executive order from the deep state and the swamp. So not only did he have to go get all these nations that were in executive orders with national emergencies, some of them didn't capitulate from 2017 to 2020. Yemen is one of them. Iran's another one. All right. Venezuela is the other one. So that's what you're witnessing. So the strikes in Iran, strategic. The strikes in Venezuela. The strikes in Yemen. But they're all executive orders from the deep state, the swamp. So that's what President Trump's talking about. Then the other executive orders, well, those nations didn't do anything. He ended those because they all capitulated to it. That's why you got to listen to the terminology, capitulate. All right, Letitia James, recently. Letitia James, she's in on a video, all pre-recorded, all this stuff strategic. It's all choreographed. They're laying this stuff out daily. It's not happening in live time. For those of you who think you're watching, it's not live time. All right, but Letitia James, she went all Southern Baptist ghetto on us. She went all Southern Baptist Ebonics on us. All right, us Southerners can say that. All right, it's not racist, it's just factual. All right, Southern Baptist ghetto. All right, and she's what? I'm not going to be attacked. I'm not going to be jobless. Sound like a Pentecostal preacher, boy, when I get wound up. Pentecostal preachers, like getting the little toys, you wind them up on the back. They get the rolling, son. They can't catch that breath. So in between words, they got to go. They got to do all that. Sound like a donkey trying to run, right? So they get excited. Right? Well, that's what old Letitia was doing. I'm not going to be attacked, and I'm not going to be a jobless, and I'm not going to capitulate. Capitulate. Now, before January the 20th, 2017, you never heard the term capitulate, not one time being used with the mainstream media or president. Every time you hear a word like that in a press conference, you're still watching the continuity of government, the military occupation. President Trump has used the terms occupied country, which is occupied territory, occupied country, capitulation, white flag of surrender, and puppet government. Now, the puppet government comms have been in mainstream media. President Trump has not said the word puppet government out of his mouth or puppet state. But between President Trump and the mainstream media, those four terms have been used in press conferences and articles from January the 20th, 2017 to present day, and no time before. Those four terms are law of war manual terms only. They are not federal government anything. Nothing federal whatsoever. That's why you got to know the law of war manual. You need to know joint publications of the military. All right, we have the joint publication 3-57, which is civil-military operations. So when you hear a governor say that the military can't come in a city, yes, we can. All right, joint publication 3-57, go to page 46 and check out that paragraph there that says that typically, generally, you don't want Title 10 forces acting directly with military and civil, unless what? There's your key word, unless. Underline it, circle it, bold it, unless what? The Constitution or Congress deems so. Congress did this. December the 20th, 2019. National Defense Authorization Act. December the 20th, 2019. Section 1550. And in there, in the codification, it tells you this is not a permanent section. It tells you this is all strategic. It just don't say it the way you want it to say it. It says it in the way someone like me can tell you, well, there's the codification, and it's telling you this is not for future presidents to use, which means this is strategic and it's temporary. But it's recorded in the War Powers Act for record's sake, and also where dumb liberals, but especially, you ain't supposed to be a Republican, conservative, patriot, MAGA sitting here saying and looking like a liberal. Where they say, oh, well, this is against the law and he can't do it. Yeah, he can. But it was Congress who did it. Title 50 is Congress. That's not the president. That's Article 1. The writ of habeas corpus. They told you in 2020, after that section went in there, all these executive orders started rolling out. All these unique laws and orders by President Trump using Title 10 started rolling out under that congressional section. And they told you that, well, President Trump says he may install a general just in case the law breaks down. Well, one, you don't install a general, so that's the wrong terminology, but that's also showing what you're watching is all strategic, pre-planned. Well, that was a comm telling you in case law breaks down. Well, that's the writ of habeas corpus right there. You suspend the writ of habeas corpus. So they call it the suspension clause because you're suspending your normal constitutional measures, and then you're what? In a military measure. There's military and there's federal government. Real simple. All right, so Venezuela. Executive Order 13692 by Osama Yelmama Obama. All roads lead to Obama. President Trump's been showing you. All roads lead to Obama. All right. Obama's been resurfacing lately because this is all choreographed. They got to paint it to look like President Trump's going to lose. All right. That's one thing about him. You need to go read his books about the comeback. All right. President Trump's known for this. Right when it looks like he's going to lose, he's going to roar back and win. All right, so they're building a narrative. If you don't want to be in the target audience, guess what you got to do? You got to escape the target audience. But if you're still reacting every day like this is real time, you're still the target audience. You're not a patriot. You don't have a clue what's going on if you're still reacting. So they're building all this up, building up. Obama's resurfacing. All right, Venezuela. Venezuela was an Obama executive order. All right, Venezuela, the Caribbean. So on April the 1st, 2020, Southern Command and 22 joint partners launched an operation against drug trafficking. You got to go read these things. That was April the 1st. Now, it ain't no April Fool's a joke. It's legit on the website. I've shared this over and over. Those Venezuelan strikes are stemming from that. So if President Trump's a dictator, if he's a threat to democracy, which we're not, but if he's a dictator, if he's a fascist, if he's a Nazi, if he's authoritarian, if he's all these things that the libtards accuse him of, then why did quote-unquote Biden allow those orders to go right on through from 2021 to 2025 to hand right back to President Trump to keep these strikes going? Because the order was put into place April the 1st, 2020. That's when the operation was launched. Everything you're watching with the Venezuelan vessels being dominated. Part of this is distractions, though. It all was real, but part of it's being used right now as distraction pieces. So that's why if you're Republican, conservative, patriot, MAGA, supposed to be all of them, but if you're those, you don't need to be reacting and like, oh, no, it's all choreographed. It's all strategic. Distractions. They're keeping the liberals stirred. They couldn't show all this at once. Now, what's cool about all of this is this ties into the continuing resolution, the shutdown right now. What people think is a shutdown. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're, again, a Republican, conservative, patriot, MAGA, or all the above, or whatever you think you are out of that batch, and you're responding, or reacting, rather, to this shutdown, you're still target audience as well. Because the laws and the orders show that we're not in a regular constitutional government. We still have the constitutional government, but we're in a military operation, a military occupation, and a continuity government. The laws show that. President Trump's verbiage tells you that, and he validates that daily. Letitia James, even though visually she's on the other side, but what came out of her mouth when she said capitulation, that is a validation. That's when you don't react to the person, but you hear the validation, you go, ha, capitulation. Ha, she just validated this operation. Now, it's not her, it's the actress, but it's validation to show you that you're still in operation. So you got to know what? You got to know the laws and the orders that are invoked right now as we speak, October the 19th, 2025, that have been invoked way back here in 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. That's where a lot of Republicans, patriots, MAGA, conservatives are failing. Because you don't even know the laws and the orders invoked by the man you claim to love and support. So this continuing resolution, you hear what it says? It's called continuing resolution. Continuing. Right? It's not a new appropriations bill. It's a continuing. Meaning it was not an appropriations bill on October the 1st, so it's a continuing resolution. All right? So that's distraction pieces. So there's two ways to slice that pie, however you want to slice it. But just like Mike Jonhson said this week, well, the Democrats not having something in play, even though this is operational, but for liberals, if you have a liberal friend or if you're combating liberals out there the right way, the good way, the healthy way, then you'd say, okay, well, the longer you keep the government shut down, then you have a king. Because you're letting President Trump have the full reins, which he already had the full reins, but not as a king, right? So a lot of this is distraction piece, but the part you learn out of it is the educational piece of it, is that this is what happens in a continuing resolution, all right? And the best thing that can break it down for you without it being so just monotone and boring, go watch the movie Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, the legendary Jimmy Stewart. Go watch that movie way back in the 1930s. That's what this is all about. All right. But what they're also doing is teaching you Americans that still think this is real time or you're paying attention to it. But what they're doing is teaching you how the swamp worked. So we're going to use the number 10 because it's an easy number to work with. Let's say there's 10 different bills that you have, we'll say 6 by the Republicans and 4 by Democrats. All right. Well, let's just go with 9 of those were good bills. Let's just say 9 of them were good. But there's one in there by the Democrats that wants to fund illegal migrants. Well, that is what Mr. Smith Goes to Washington is all about. It shows you how these people, through the years, they consolidated these you get 6 and we get 4. And then next time it may be us getting 6 and you getting 4. So they put all these together. But then the ones who are paying attention and read it going, whoa, 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 this one don't make, no, this one, if we pass all these together and this one's in here, this one is bad. This is not good for us. This is not good for the American people. So what they would do in years past is they would take one of the good bills out of that. They wouldn't highlight the bad one. They'd say, oh, the Republicans shut down this and they're not passing this bill. And they'd say they're not passing pay for veterans. Boom. Right? This is what they'll do. They'll take that and they'll try to smear the Republicans for not putting their dirty, bad bill in this lump sum. We can't have that, ladies and gentlemen. We can't have it. We have had lazy career politicians who don't want to take a bill at a time, or either if you want to do 10 bills at once, but, well, slide this one in last second. That is where you, the American people, you have to re-educate yourself. You call this boring, then you need to keep your mouth shut. If you think all this is boring, if you think all this is nonsense, then why are you even here? Why are you commenting? Why do you care? Why do you have an opinion? Every aspect of this matters. It's not just, oh, the president is good and I think he's doing good things. That's how we end up with bad politicians. Because you think they sound good and you think they look good, but you're not holding them accountable everywhere it counts. And you're not reading everything. You're not studying everything. You don't read everything that they're proposing. And that is how we lose America. That is how the swamp was built. That is how it grew. And that's how we had what we had before January the 20th, 2017. The other thing they're doing right now is what most, even Republicans, conservatives, MAGA, patriots are not even paying attention to. You all, boy, love you some drama. Ooh, do y'all love you some drama? Just like I always use this analogy. If you had a guy, a southern guy, bachelor, good-looking guy, somewhat good-looking, right? And you put him in this house and you give him 24 roses and 25 gals, all right? If you didn't have a camera crew around that house, and a camera crew filming this guy and what he's doing, and, you know, the few times that they edit it out and they show you them kissing and all this other stuff. If you didn't have a camera crew on the house, and you didn't have some cool little network that's real popular to all of you, like a turkey with colorful feathers, all right, that's sponsoring this, and oh, you know, this is going to be the new TV show out on NBC, blah, 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 blah. If a guy had 25 women in a house without a camera around it, guess what you ladies call him? Y'all call him a male hoe. Am I right or am I right? A guy with 25 women in one household is either a polygamist or a hoe. That's what you'd call him. But oh, we put us some cameras around that house. We put us a little network logo on there, and we say this is going to be the new TV show out. What do you ladies do then? You hypocritical ladies, what do y'all do? Oh man, Paxton, he's such a gentleman. Oh, Paxton, he's such a, oh, look at this guy. Pick him, pick her, pick this one. Don't give her no rose, she's a hoe. That's what y'all do. Y'all love you some drama. Y'all love you some propaganda and some bullshit. And it's all it is bullshit. That's what the typical American does. You love all this stuff that ain't reality. You love drama. You love propaganda. You love negativity. You love it short, spoon-fed segments. Epstein! Why are the Epstein files being released? Release the Epstein files! Release them! Drama, 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 drama. What would you do if there were files and they released them? Then guess what people are going to do? Well, they had plenty of time to scrub this. They had plenty of time to remove names. You're never satisfied. You're never happy. Because you love you some damn drama. Drama, 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 drama. And you just keep the drama going. It's like that stupid soap opera, Days of Our Lives. It's been going on for like 40 years now. How do you even know where to pick up? Well, you don't have to worry about that because it's just always drama. You can just pick up with Johnny and Amelia and then Susie and Timmy. And then it's drama. And you just pick up from there until you die. And then guess what? Your daughter that you taught drama to, she's going to be watching it too. Days of Our Lives, going on 78 years now. Y'all love you some drama. Epstein, Epstein, Epstein. Y'all wouldn't even know what to do with it if it was real. But then when they sit there and tell you, so what you've been missing out on this whole time was a .gov site put out that there were these subpoenas for Epstein. Right? It started way back here in August, September, and then the last one was supposed to be William Bill Clinton on October the 14th. But no, y'all ain't talking about that. Oh no, I look in the comment boxes, I see certain stuff. Oh no, ain't nobody talking about Bill and Hillary. Ain't nobody talking about it. Because you follow the wrong people, you follow the wrong trash, and all you just want it spoon-fed in your kind of way. You don't have a team concept, you don't have an America concept, you don't have an American foundation, you have a Build-A-Bear foundation. You have a Burger King foundation. You want it your way. Oh, man. So they show all these people being subpoenaed on early October, not long ago, just a few weeks ago, rocking on 3 weeks ago. You had Eric Holder and Merrick Garland, who are libtards, who do not like President Trump. All right. Eric Holder, Merrick Garland, what did they say? No such thing as Epstein files. Where are all you drama-fed people at? Where are you? Where are you at, drama-fed Republicans, conservatives, patriots, MAGA? Where are you? I ain't seen any of y'all complaining about that. I ain't even seen any of you talk about that. We have people who see and surf the web to see what people are talking about. Ain't none of you talking about it. All you drama-fed, at least if you're drama-fed, why aren't you whining, complaining, and griping, or even using it against your libtard friends saying, hey, here's your boys, Eric and Merrick. Where are they at? They're saying there's no such thing. No, y'all not doing that. Oh, hell no. Y'all got to just focus on President Trump. Where's the Epstein files? You didn't even see that President Trump put out a release way back in July. He said to release the grand jury investigation and what? what, a Clinton appointed judge or Obama appointed, one of them, it was someone appointed judge, right? Someone else blocked it. I'm pretty sure if President Trump's name was anywhere in there, he wouldn't be releasing grand jury information. And then, why didn't Biden? If y'all thought Biden was real, how come none of these people, do you know, no you don't, but I'm just saying it, do you know when Epstein was first investigated? 2005! 20 years ago! If President Trump's name was anywhere remotely close to Epstein, outside the fact that everybody wanted to take a photo with him in the 90s, and everybody wanted to take a photo with even Epstein back then, other than that, how come all these years they didn't use that as leverage? Why would the deep state go off with Russia collusion first, which was a fake dossier, which was a fake fraudulent story? Why would they go with that in November and December 2016 when President Trump beat Hillary? Why didn't they come out with something that they claim is factual? They, meaning the low-level libtards out there. It's not any of the high-level libtards. So why are you Republican conservatives? Why are y'all so hung up on this crap? Because y'all love you some drama too. Y'all love you some propaganda. And you're not about America. You're not America first. You're not President Trump. You're just a bandwagon. That's exactly what you are. You're not America first. You're not pro-military. You're not learning military. You're not knowing what you're supposed to know as an American. You're not learning and studying or relearning and restudying your American history. No, you're all about yourself. You're all about you. And you're all about drama and propaganda. That's exactly what you are. Because you ain't been talking about Eric and Merrick. Then, oh, Hillary and Bill. Now, to the average person out there, Hillary and Bill have not been involved in politics directly for quite a while. Especially since Hillary lost November the 8th, 2016. 9 years ago. Almost 9 years ago. Sure, she's quote-unquote appeared on some little shows here and here. But she's not active and direct in politics anymore from that standpoint of trying to make a comeback or trying to run for this or trying to lead this. Bill definitely hasn't. Bill's probably been trying to get on one of them Bachelor shows, to be honest. We all know. You know, bring Monica back and, you know, bring on Kamala, you know, bring on some of the... No. So they've been what? In quote-unquote retirement to the average person. They haven't been heavy, been involved, anything. So Hillary and Bill were supposed to be in a deposition on October the 9th and October the 14th. We're talking about 10 days ago now, well over a week, and just a few days ago for quote-unquote Bill. No chatter. Ain't heard anybody say anything about it. Haven't seen any of the comment boxes. No one's chattering about it. What did they say? You Google it. What did they say? The deposition said. What did their lawyers say? That Hillary and Bill need to reschedule because the subpoena and the deposition doesn't fit in their scheduling. So we're talking about an article that was put out in August of this year, the subpoena date list, and then all of a sudden, Bill and Hillary's schedule doesn't permit for a deposition. Man, this stuff is so funny. It's so you can't even. That's why it's hard for me to talk in another way, because once you know what you can know, and once you see it, you can't unsee it, you can't unknow it. And you can see how trapped the average person is. And a lot of people who follow me, you think you're awake and you're not. Now you could be partially, but you're still, some of you still think you are and you're not. Because if you were, this stuff is so easy. You can tell it's a blueprint. You can tell it's strategic. You can tell it's choreographed. You can also tell that it's all pre-recorded. Everything. This is not happening in real time. You can see the distractions. You can see when they're needed and how they're needed. And then you can see all the other things that were supposed to be rolled out at this time that's an answer to something way back here. So let me just, this is part 2. I'm going to show you a little bit of part 2. It's not as bad as it looks. It's 596 pages, but it's not as bad as it looks. There's the longest paragraph in here is probably like that. It's not even long at all, and it's mostly photos. But I'm just going to give you a little mindset of, okay, why and how they would have pulled it off this way. One, Americans are drama-based, propaganda-based, brainwashed, incompetent, ignorant, dumb, and stupid. Now, that don't mean you're all of them. It just means you're 1, 2, 3, 4, it's somehow. You don't know what you're supposed to know as an American. You don't know your basic core values of America. You don't even know your basic core principles of America. And you also don't even know the basic foundation of America. You don't know how it works. You don't know how the verbiage is supposed to work. And then how it's supposed to work as a whole for everybody. It's supposed to be broad, meaning the Constitution was written to be broad for a reason. Broad meaning very vague in a good way. The laws up under that were supposed to be passed according to what we needed as Americans. That ain't what happened. The judicial branch took over this nation, the 1870s. That's why President Trump has told you that we were the richest nation we've always been a rich nation. But he said we were our richest from the 1870s to 1913. He is telling you what I've told you a long time ago, and it ain't about me, but just making a point, that the 1870s, the Organic Act in 1913, when 1913 is when they established the Federal Reserve and income tax. And he told you during that time period we had more money than we knew what to do with. Well, guess what he's alluding to? He's alluding to the fact that the deep state knew what to do with it. That's what he's alluding to. He's telling you that the deep state knew what to do with it, and they hijacked it. And then from 1913, it was just a fight from there. That's why you had James Stewart, Jimmy Stewart, John Wayne in the movie Stagecoach, 1939. John Wayne, there's an actor in there that says, what this country needs is a businessman. 1939, we never had a businessman. We had a bunch of trash, incompetent, career politicians that brainwashed, deceived, and tricked so many Americans, Republican and Democrat, thinking that what you were watching was all good for you. And they knew what they were doing, and all they didn't. So naturally, when you have some good guys go in and overtake the military, via the military, overtake the deep state, the swamp, naturally, yeah, they're going to retaliate. They're supposed to. They're supposed to turn and say, oh, these people are trash. And they're supposed to. They got to retaliate. So that's why you can't focus on certain things. Sure, so-and-so is going to say something. Sure, they're going to say President Trump is this. Sure, they're going to say something about this. They have to. But what you're watching from January the 20th, 2017 to present day is all in a blueprint. It's all pre-planned. It's all strategic. And everything you're watching visually on camera is pre-recorded. So there's no need of getting upset, in a tizzy, get your panties in a wad, get mad, get in front. None of it. It's all choreographed. It's all pre-planned. And that's why Lieutenant Colonel Bosey, who wrote the forwards on these books, he's a retired Lieutenant Colonel Special Operations Australia. All right, but he's not the only one, but I quote him because he made this quote. I put credit where it's due. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. All right. A lot of people don't do that out there. All those people you're watching, you're looking for truth in all the wrong places, they don't put credit where it's due. If they did, they'd tell you that, hey, there's already books that show you what's going on. This is all you need to know. Now, if you can't afford them, they're all on my pages, but right here. And Lieutenant Colonel Bosey said it best. He said, special operations were either 2 or 3 weeks or 2 to 5 weeks ahead of things, depending on what it is. We're 2 to 5 months ahead of it, depending on what it is, and 2 to 5 years ahead of it, depending on what it is. It just depends on what level it is. But everything you've seen me do, a lot of you faithful followers, you see me, it looks like I'm ahead of President Trump. Ahead of it, meaning like when I post something. When I post something, then something will come right after it, and it's like, chink. Well, that's because of his laws and orders. It's not because that I'm ahead of him because Derek Johnson's ahead of him. No, it's because of the laws and the orders put into place by the United States military and where they pair with federal. That's how I'm ahead of him. It's because I'm using his material and the military. Now, he's the face of the operation, so it's really the generals and the admirals who put this together. He's the man who said, yes, I will stand there and put the face on it. They wanted an outsider. He was never in the military. Checkmate, perfect. He was never in government. Checkmate, perfect. So when you reset this thing, for history's sake, when we move forward and everything's unveiled to you, that'll be a divider line for future generations to look back on and go, well, before President Donald John Trump, it was this, 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 and this. And here's where the divider was put into place. That's why it had to look this way. That's why it had to be an operation this way. Because we're draining the swamp, the deep state, the hijacking of America, right? The British revolting is basically what it would be in layman's terms, even though they're not British. But we lost America. We lost our United States of America. We lost our Constitution. We lost our republic to a hijacking, a Washington, D.C. congressional politicians, career politicians, established their own democracy. So you're watching us retake it, drain it, put it back on its foundation. But it had to be shown to the people where you would appreciate it and respect it. And so far, America's failing by the majority so far. Now, voting-wise, no. But by respect and appreciation of what you're watching, unfortunately, most of America is still failing. So, for the target audience, this is how you would address a target audience, whether it be your husband, your wife, your children, your family, extended family, your town halls, your city hall, or wherever maybe you have a small group, a little group, whatever, or whoever you're talking to. This is how you would address them, because I get this a lot. So special operations, once you learn the basic core of military laws, military orders, and then your federal laws, your federal orders, which would be executive orders, things like that. There's only 4 ways the military pairs. 4. With the federal. Executive orders, national emergencies, proclamations, and treaties. Those all require a president. Well, President Eisenhower and 5-star general, rare 5-star general, established the continuity of government. When he established the continuity of government, he established these things called a Presidential Emergency Action Document. They accompany the continuity of government, meaning like you have one, you have the other. So if you have verbal confirmation of one, then you have verbal confirmation of another somewhere. You just hadn't heard it or hadn't seen it yet, or didn't know where to look for it. So there's verbal and factual proof that you're watching a military occupation, military operation, continuity of government. via executive orders and also visual military movement. And then you hear President Trump using the terms I told you: occupied country, white flag of surrender, capitulation, and puppet government. The last 4 years, heavily, those terms have been used. Heavily. In every article, every press conference, somehow, some way, those have been used when they're needed. Occupied country and puppet government are in the same chapter of the Law War Manual. Guess what chapter that is? The military occupation chapter. So see, all those things matter. So there's things that fall in a sequence. Let me start up here. There'll be this here, this here, this here, this here, this here, this here. Right? And once you know all that verbiage, and once you know all that language and the context and how to weave it together, then you'll be able to see this from a 40,000 foot view and see every increment of it. So this is what it would look like. All these body doubles that they're using. The CIA's been doing this for years, ladies and gentlemen. There were different Joe Bidens before 2021. All right? The CIA's been doing this for years. So what you do, in order to reverse out this garbage that was put on you, the people, we the people, you take every bit of their playbook. Let me find a smaller book here. It's kind of like this. This is my notebook here. You take every bit of their playbook and you use it against them in every way possible. So what you do early on, 2017, you detain everybody that needed detaining, and you put in a double for them. This is the good guys now. Watch what I'm saying. Listen what I'm saying. You take all the ones that you need out first. All right. You implement this military occupation, meaning the military is in a different mode, a different mindset, a different everything, different operations. You set this parameter around just like this. All right? Not going to let them go past it. So, you know the hungry hippo game or the angry hippo where all the little marbles are hitting the deck and you're hitting a little thing and you're trying to get as many as you can? Right? Well, picture that globe. Right? And picture all these marbles out here. Well, those marbles are not going past that parameter. You set this like that. Right? So all these people are in this globe, and they can't get past that globe. But we got them, we're watching them, and we're seeing what they're doing. All right? They didn't really realize in the early stages who all was a part of this massive operation. That's why when you're a good person on the front, and you're a good person in the middle, everything else takes care of itself. That's how people ask me all the time, well, how does secret military, how do y'all know each other? How do you know when you're this or that? And it's like, well, if you're good on the front and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing on the front always, by integrity, by morals, by ethics, by principles, by standards, by protocol, by laws, by orders, when you're doing that on the front, it's easy to see. But like the career politicians, one thing they did, right? Here's one thing that career politicians did. They get on the camera and tell you that they're this, and that, but what were they doing? Something like insider trading. When you know that you've never heard of a congressman for, let's say, Wyoming, all right? You've never heard of them. Maybe you're in Maine or maybe you're in Hawaii, and you've never heard of some small congressman in Wyoming. But the people of Wyoming know that, man, that dude, he grew up in a subdivision that was a low to middle class. Now he's living in this, and you know he didn't have the job. He wasn't a businessman. He wasn't anything that would have attained that. And you're like, well, how did he go from this for 42 years of his life to living in this and driving that insider stock, insider trade? Well, that is something that they allowed to just brew and stew and let take place all these years. Something that simple. So when it's something that simple, you definitely ain't going to know the ones who are involved in trafficking, child trafficking, sex trafficking, human trafficking. Because those are more, obviously, secretive things that they were doing. So only certain people would know how to know that, to follow the money, as President Trump said. So see, but the swamp was so deep and so big, and they let all these things fester and grow, and they just kept what? They would let these people just roam. And then you have your target audience, who's the target audience by innocence, yes, in a lot of ways. However, when that target audience never, ever questions any of these career politicians for all these years, you never question, and you just let them build and build and build and build, then the target audience, then you're nothing but what? You're the birds in the nest. That's it. You just keep believing what you're being told. Here. You never investigate these people, right? And these people give you reasons to investigate them. They give you reasons. Like, again, you see a guy go from a little tiny house to this monster, massive mansion, and you're like, well, his job never changed, and he's only making $175,000 a year as a congressman. So how did he go from, all expenses paid, what's left, to going into that? That should be a red flag to go, And then if the congressman is being a good congressman, then they want to show you that, hey, well, I actually have a trust fund or a this or a whatever it is, like something you didn't know about, that they would show you. Because if they wanted their record clean and they didn't want you to think that, oh, yeah, I'm doing something under the table, then they would show you, right? And then if you didn't shut your mouth after that, let's say it was something innocent, like, oh, I had an inheritance that my grandfather left me and you didn't know about it, and then they tell you that and they show it to you, then you should shut up from then, all right, until other reasons to question. And that's just a tiny example. That ain't all variables. It can be so many variables out there. So you take this playbook, let me use my thing again. You take the playbook of the deep state. You detain the ones you need to detain, and then you put the ones in place. You put doubles in place. You use their playbook, all right? You follow the money. That way you take out the top dog all the way down to the lowest level, the crack of hell, as the saying is. You take out from the top to the bottom of the whole money chain and where everything was going, every operation. What our deep state did to everybody all these years was they would let us go in Iraq and Afghanistan and Bosnia and Kosovo, Korea, Vietnam. They put everybody in these places, but they would hold them back. They would limit them. You take out a few here and here, but you let them take out some too. They kept it balanced, see? They never unleashed the dogs of war, as the saying is, right? They never unleashed the gates of hell on the enemy, if they ever were a real enemy. See? So that didn't happen. So they limited all these things through the years. So what President Trump and the good guys would have to do is take over their playbook, all right, and then follow every aspect of their money, see where it's going, who it is, who it all links to. That's why there's so many pages and affidavits and so many indictments, and so you just don't even realize how deep this stuff was, and is. But it is only from the standpoint of meaning like it's going to come to a closure and then solve. Is present tense, meaning that angle. Not that they're still lingering out there. Everything's captured. So that's what President Trump did. That's why I go heavy into that in this book. So you take out the key players, you put in key players, doubles, all right, and then they're doing all these things, right? And it's just a visual for you. Everything of this, every bit of this is choreographed. So let's use something like this. So President Trump, when he's standing up at a press conference, it don't really matter. I only have to use an example. Well, when he's standing up and he's saying something, and it's going to implement, well, it's going to, I'm trying to think of the right word. It's going to indicate somewhere down the road that so-and-so is going to go down for this crime. So not long ago, he stripped the access, the clearances of John Bolton and all these people. That's a great example. John Bolton. Well, at the time, everybody thought that was real time. It wasn't. All this is planned, right? But at the time, it looked real, all right? And now you're seeing what? The indictment of who? John Bolton, all right? So what did John Bolton do, though, way back when he was stripped? To the target audience, he retaliated. He said something against President Trump again, right? Well, February last year, February 2024, he was on CNN, and they were asking him a question, all choreographed, all pre-planned, all pre-recorded, but for the target audience that thought it was real, they asked him a question. The question didn't pertain to what the little thing said on the screen. If you read the screen, it said a second term. But if you listen to John Bolton, when the reporter said, can President Trump serve a second term with all the lawsuits on him, what did John Bolton say? Well, knowing Trump like I know Trump, he's going to seek to ratify the Constitution to stay in power a third term, even though the Constitution specifically bars it. A third term. So if you read the screen and you listened to the reporter, it said second and second. But when you listen to John Bolton, he said a third term. What does President Trump already put on ball caps? He already has a ball cap, this color, and it says Trump 2028. He just posted again today on True Social. It shows 2016, 2024, 2028. It's so hilarious. Like it shows the map, the 2048, 2072, way on out. It shows that map with Trump on it. Trump, 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 and all the years keeping going. He shared that again on this True Social today, October the 19th. All right. So he did that obviously because of all the King's comments. But when President Trump stands up there and he's saying things, what it's doing for the target audience, but also the target audience of those who were detained back here, see, in reality, it would have been someone back here that was detained who wasn't given the information they were supposed to be given. So the more President Trump's talking, and they're playing this out, behind the scenes back here, the people who weren't crowing like they're supposed to or telling something that they're supposed to, they just keep building all this stuff on them. And the stuff's already known to the people who are the good guys and also the people who are detained. So, but what it's for, though, is that they, the real time back here, the real criminals, they have to watch what they wouldn't capitulate early on. So the longer they didn't capitulate, the longer they didn't white flag and surrender, the longer they didn't give the information, because we already got you. We got you detained. You're not going to kill yourself. You're not going to hang yourself. We got you in padded cells. We got you in prisons that you can't do anything to yourself whatsoever. And they got to watch their legacy on the TV, right? Because we all know prisoners have TVs now. So they got to watch this stuff. And the longer they keep their mouth shut, well, guess what? These target audience get to watch your quote-unquote, what you think is your legacy, is about to be destroyed. And we're going to show the people what you've been doing. See, that, to a liberal now, they'll think that's torture and they think that's inhumane and all these things. Well, you'll get over it. All right, because they don't realize how dirty the people they claim to support, they don't even realize how dirty and sick they are. And if they do, and they still support it, they're also the problem. They are a problem, and they will be a problem if we don't deal with them. So let's just use an operation. A lot of you saw something on September the 10th that y'all thought was real. And you boo-hooed and you cried and, oh, Charlie Kirk, why would they want to take out Charlie? Y'all are still not in the real world. You don't want to understand special operations. You don't want to understand what this man is the face of. It's all in special operations. It's all on that pyramid on page 11 of the 2016 Unconventional Warfare Pocket Guide. It's all strategic operations. And so once you learn that, and you learn every time President Trump speaks daily, somewhere back here, it had something to do with someone did not capitulate. Someone didn't give up what they were supposed to. So the more he talks, the more they have to watch their quote-unquote legacy be destroyed. So Charlie Kirk, here's one variable. Okay, here's what every special operations commander has validated. And if you don't believe them, then you just don't, you probably need to quit, one. But then two, you need to go study it. But did Charlie Kirk quote-unquote assassination would have been a real tip-off? Meaning, like, we know that these people were planning on assassinating Charlie Kirk. They were planning on it in real life to do it. So what the Special Operations Command will do is go, okay, well, we already know about it, so what we're going to do is plan it, and we're going to make it look real to the people, but guess what it's doing? Remember the people back here that got detained? Them. You play this out, make it look real, and tell these people, you didn't give us what we needed, you didn't give us what we wanted, and the longer you keep your mouth shut, we're going to keep playing these things out, and it's going right on your resume, your bad resume. And it's all coming out on you. So it would be someone who didn't do what they were supposed to do back here. They didn't say or tie something together. All right. There you go. Now, a lot of times in real life, you watch forensic shows. Some of you watch these shows on TV, criminal shows, but forensic shows where there's multiple people who are involved in a crime. Well, most of them crow rooster because of what? They don't know what the other one's saying in the room next door. And if you got a good detective, that detective is going to use psychological operations on that one sitting in it. Well, every detective in every room is going to use that on them and say, well, your buddy's in this room right over here, and they done told us this, or that, and that. You get in their head a little bit, right? Well, most of the time they'll crow rooster because there ain't many people who are willing to take the integrity bullet and go down, even if their buddies are over there crowing like a rooster. There's not many who are willing to sit there and go, I want to see a lawyer. There ain't many willing to do that. Most of them know good and well that their buddies are over there crowing like a rooster. So a lot of them have done this, but some of them didn't. So that's exactly what that would have been. It would have been a tip-off in that we intercept that plan, but we're going to make it look a certain part of this because that can flip the narratives out there. The target audience, Christians, are all hook, line, and sinker. What did President Trump say a couple years ago? Where was he speaking? Well, maybe it was last year, one of them. Yeah, last year. He was speaking and he said Christians and gun owners are two of the biggest groups that do not even vote. So how can you claim to be a Christian? How can you claim to love this nation? How can you claim to be a gun owner, Second Amendment, and not even vote? And then he was, the media took it and they ran with President Trump said you won't ever have to vote again if you Christians go out and vote. That was all choreographed and strategic as well in another manner. But for the people who didn't know that, that's what the media said. President Trump said you're not going to ever have to vote again. We're not even going to have elections. That's what they said with it. It was from that speech that President Trump said that Christians and gun owners don't even vote. Guess where he was speaking? Turning Point, USA. All this stuff is so strategic, it's not even funny. That speech was at Turning Point, USA. That is the heavier target audience out there who are all in their emotions, all in their feelings, all in the Fox News, drama, propaganda, feed them like the birds in a nest. So they better be glad that the good guys and gals that we have taken over this nation and in control, especially the ones way on the top, You better be glad. But the Charlie Kirk thing would have been a tip-off that was going to happen. You intercept the plan, but it can be used as a turning point. And what did it do? But to this day, on my Facebook and on my X accounts, I just put these videos up again this week sometime. To this day, October the 19th, the original footage of the quote-unquote neck shot is not flagged as graphic content on my pages. But I was sitting watching a football game a few weeks back, and the player, they do a highlight of a player who had a disease, and he beat this disease, and now he has this cool story how he's playing college football. They blurred out on TV, they blurred out this surgical procedure, but to show you on this kid's stomach, this college kid's stomach, how big the wound was, but they blurred it. You couldn't even see anything. And guess what is flagged as graphic content on my X and Facebook? That video. Ladies and gentlemen, that is coding. That is an app with all these high-tech individuals who code these apps. It's the same apps. So if that app can flag a video that's already blurred out with blood as graphic content, but Charlie Kirk, original footage of the quote-unquote artificial synthetic blood, and it ain't real, is not flagged as graphic content, if you can't understand that, you need to quit right now. You need to quit. You need to go pick up knitting, crocheting, golfing, hiking, something, sailing. No, that requires too much brain too. All right, you need to pick up in golf. That rules out that too. All right, you need like knitting or crocheting, but even those require your brain to go knit it. You need to pick up something, probably just stargazing. Just sit in the lawn chair and just look up and sing Kumbaya. That's going to be more your speed. If you can't comprehend that, because we're in a technological world, it ain't going away. We're in an artificial intelligence world, it ain't going away. If you can't understand that a blurred out video that don't even show the actual blood is flagged as graphic content, but the actual real live footage of Charlie Kirk is not flagged as graphic content, it was an operation that special forces, special operations would have received before and said, we can use this as our playbook. It can be a this, and it can be a this, and it can do this, and it can do that. And it did that. It did every one of those. And if you fell for it, and if you put up some memorial photo, and oh, God bless Charlie Kirk, the guy who had a funeral without a casket. I was on True Social this week. They got an AI button now. You click on President Trump's page, artificial intelligence button. All you got to do is go, where's Charlie Kirk buried? It says, based on our reliable sources, the sources say he's not even dead. No burial. So we have no burial, no resting place. So we can give a guy a medal, one of the highest medals in the world, but we have no burial, we have no resting place. They didn't show his mom and daddy back then, but now we can show his mom and daddy on the medal. Well, I mean, those are distraction pieces. If you're falling for that, you're the target audience. So checkmate, if you're falling for it, you're still in the target audience. If you put up, happy birthday, Charlie, you're the target audience. You're not a patriot. You're not a MAGA patriot. You think you are, but you ain't. You don't respect military. You don't appreciate military because military has strategic and special operations. And those are more your key components than any other aspect of the military. And there's men and women active duty, carrying out those components, and I know quite a few of them, and all you're doing is a disservice to their service. Then there's people like me and many others who've had an opportunity given to us in a certain lane at a certain capacity, tiny capacity, but tiny lane, but opportunity for being a veteran, for knowing this stuff, and then taking that opportunity, who are on the external side of the military, but still knowing the military, doing the military thing, that you're also doing a disservice to. When you say military laws, military orders, military regulations, military customs, military strategies, military tactics are all hogwash, or that's a conspiracy theory, all you're doing is crapping on every memorial grave in this nation. That's all you're doing. And every veteran that knows what's going on lawfully, you're crapping on us. It's just that you can't dice that anymore. All right. So I came up with a quote earlier today, and it's not anything brilliant, but shouldn't be in another way. It's supposed to be easy. So this correlates with what President Trump said way back in 2020. If you'll go back and watch the press conferences in 2020 during the COVID press conferences, President Trump said the cure cannot be worse than the problem. Now, when you think of that, the cure cannot be worse than the problem. You could also change the word worse out and put bigger. The cure cannot be bigger than the problem. You can put the word harder in there. The cure cannot be harder than the problem. It should be easier. It should be simple. So, in special operations, using things like getting a tip-off that something was going to happen, you can get tip-offs every day and go, well, that's a normal. But Charlie Kirk tip-off, colleges, young kids, younger generations, college kids, all have been brainwashed at college institutions, all the way from their mamas and daddies. That is a tip-off that we can use as our plan, as a part of it. And it could have been that Charlie was tired and didn't want to do this anymore. There's a lot of variables that could have played into it that would have been perfect and go, okay, we can use that. You can dip out here, put you in witness protection. And more. There's a lot of variables. That's why this stuff, strategic operations and special operations are fun, because you can't be wrong as long as you have a foundation. You can have a lot of different ideas and all be validated. That just means that you're a strategic thinker, you're a critical thinker, you're a creative thinker. There's nothing wrong with having all these different thoughts as long as you have a foundation. But when you say it's hogwash, or you say that's not, why would they do that? I can show we're in a military operation. Everybody who follows, we're most certainly in a military operation. The laws show it, the verbiage shows it, and the visuals show it. So when you have all those, then you can't say, the Charlie Kirk thing, I believe everything else, but I don't believe that. You can't. Quit. You can't do that. You can't be, I'm 99% on board with that one. You can't. As long as this dash is still showing that dash, you're in this operation. And it is most certainly a part of it. So the quote, that was President Trump's quote. Now I have this quote. And it specifically says, you play their game until they get tired of you playing their game. So you've used their tactics on them. And see, here's how you reverse something out. So a lot of you patriots, you didn't know about this before either, and that's okay. You're not supposed to if you didn't. But the target audience, when the target audience has displayed all of these tactics and strategies that the deep state used, and we take it and reverse it on them in good ways, right? When you put those strategies out there on the table for everybody to see, guess what can't happen in the future? They can't be used again in a negative way, right? So see, the deep state used all these tactics to brainwash you, to trick you, to deceive you, manipulation, gaslighting, conniving, lying, fraud, all these things on the target audience. So when the good guys take it and use their game against them, right? And we intercept this and go, oh, well, they were going to assassinate him, or we're going to make it look like it really happened. But they know. See, you're not the target audience from that angle because they are. That's the real target audience, and it's supposed to be the real target audience, which is how you escape being in the target audience, is knowing that everything, every aspect of this playbook is on the deep state, which also prevents the future. It prevents those tactics being used again in the future. And when it's exposed to you, the people, and you consume it, and you see it, and you analyze it, and you absorb it, and then it clicks, you're going, oh. And then in the future, guess what you'll be looking for? If you ever see it, when someone like me is long gone and dead, right? Whenever we're out of the picture, or all your different people are out of the picture, whenever it's your children, and their children, and their children, when they see it, now they're going to have evidence. They're going to have evidence. This is why history has to be written, and it has to be handwritten. All right? That's why it's important to write down these things. My new book is Liberal Hypocrisy, and if you hear this rhetoric in the future, 9 generations out, 100 generations, if you hear this rhetoric, you probably want to get rid of that person's mouth that's saying it, because guess what they are? They're trash, and they're a libtard, and they have no foundation. And you give them an inch, they're going to take 1 trillion miles, and they're going to skull drag your IQ all the way through it. So you play their game on them. So it's the same thing as like reversing the code out. Right? Sometimes when you put something, when you code something, in order to code it, sometimes you got to reverse it out. So it's all game theory, but then you got people out there that complains about the game theory. And I'm like, well, you wouldn't want the real theory. I can assure you that. You don't want the real theory. That's for sure. You definitely don't want real theory, because real theory was what you had before November the 8th, 2016. That's what you really had. So you've already had real theory. So game theory is reversing the code and using all their playbook against them, and you're showing the people who want to consume this, the consumption, here you go, here's what they used against you, we're using it against them, and here's what it is, and then in the future you can identify it, if it popped up again. So let's look at one other thing, restricting telecommunications, all right? That's an emergency power, restricting telecommunications. So when people want to see proof, I've got millions of proofs all over my pages, but restricting telecommunications. All right, that's Telecommunications Act 1996. All right, it's actually titled War Powers of the President, Title 47, Section 606. All right, Hegseth, just this past week, Hegseth, and I'm going to read a little bit of the article, I ain't going to read all of it, but Pete Hegseth had given ultimatums to all of these networks out there that they had to sign this agreement that they're going to start pledging to tell what they hear, not what they want to spin to the audiences out there. All right, so now watch this. This is how comms happen. This is what we call a comm. All right, I do a lot of that in here. All right, part 2. Not so much in here. Part 1's more of your foundation and getting your feet wet. Right here, The Hill article. Now, I use mainstream articles to show you what they're supposed to be saying, and then also part of this operation. But this is from The Hill. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth demanded that reporters agree by 5 p.m. Tuesday, talking about this past Tuesday, a new policy under which they would need to pledge to not obtain or use any unauthorized material, even if the information is unclassified, or hand over their press badges in the next 24 hours. Media outlets say this is a violation of the First Amendment. See, there's your retaliation. So naturally they're going to say that. But that's that libtard who don't know their own foundation, their own origin, their own history of how they even have their First Amendment. Now, here's the key thing, though. This is where it's awesome. All right. Let me find it really quick. All right. The rejections mean for the first time since the Eisenhower administration, no major U.S. television network or publication will have a permanent presence in the Pentagon. Now, that right there is what you call a comm. It's a validation if you're a patriot, but it's a comm if you're a patriot as well. Meaning, the first time since Eisenhower, of all presidents, Eisenhower, of all people, a rare 5-star general, of all people, the same guy who established the continuity government and the presidential emergency action documents, which expand the power of the president, which are draft classified. And at the Charlie Kirk quote-unquote funeral with no casket, what'd you hear Benny Jonhson say? That a godly government took over this nation. And we have right here with us the Department of War and Department of Justice, the guys who took over. That's not the federal government. That's not Congress. A godly government took over this nation, and we have them right here, the whole Department of War and Department of Justice. That's not Congress. That's not the federal government. They sat there and told the whole world the whole time. Every song about Charlie Kirk had the storm in it. Did you not hear the singers talking about even through the storm, through the storm? You did not hear the singers all throughout the service mention the storm, the storm, the storm, the storm? Did you not listen? Did you see Tucker Carlson? Did you see old Tucker, who was implemented or indicated and all that? Guess who's in the Biden laptop report connected to old Hunter? Tucker Carlson. Old Tucker Carlson, right here, friend of Hunter. Oh, yeah, all of you Fox News loving people, old Tucker's in here. Tucker's got some explaining to do. He had some explaining to do to the good guys. Why he's in this 636-page confirmed Biden laptop report given by the FBI to Rudy Giuliani, to Marco Polo. 636 pages of filth, trafficking, China, all of them. Old Tucker Carlson laughing at this quote-unquote funeral. He was telling a story about Jesus and correlating that in with Charlie. This is how dumb the target audience is. I'm sorry, I know you don't want to be called dumb sometimes, but I got to say it. This is how dumb you are. You're sitting there, and old Tucker's up there telling a story about Jesus and talking about how, yeah, the Romans, and they thought, oh, the only way to get rid of him is to kill him. And he laughs. I mean, that is, I mean, you need a dunce cap on. If you believe all this stuff is real, you need a dunce cap. I'm a dunce. You need to walk around and you need to wear your MAGA, but you need to go the Oompa Loompa dance and go, I'm a dunce, 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 dunce. I believe this stuff's real. I can't see logic. I can't see reasoning. You need to do the Oompa Loompa dance. Tucker laughing, telling a Jesus story and a correlation to killing, and laughs. They showed every aspect of the. This ain't real, ladies and gentlemen. And the odds the Arizona Cardinals just so happened playing a game that weekend at their home stadium. People, please, God help you, Jesus, Lord, have mercy on this brains of this nation. The target audience. Whew. Benny Jonhson tells you the Department of War, a godly government took over this nation, the Department of War and the Department of Justice. Do you know who sees the draft classifieds of the Presidential Emergency Action Document? You know who that is? You think it's the Congress. You maybe think it's the Department of War. No, Department of Justice. When the president has draft classifieds, meaning executive orders, national emergencies, proclamations, and treaties that you can't know about because of special operation taking place, a wartime operation. Well, how do you validate that? Oh, real easy. President Trump's first 180 days. First 100 days. What did he say? In the first 100 days this year, he said, I've signed over 350 executive actions. You can go back right now to the Federal Register where they house all your executive orders, national emergencies, proclamations, presidential memoranda. You can go over there. Guess how many there were in that first 180 days? Only 150. Where were the other 200? Where are the other 200 registered? Where are they? Presidential emergency action documents, because they're draft classified, meaning you can't know about them. But if you knew there's a special operation going on by other laws and orders that are public for you to read, and you know what they mean, you know what they tie into, and then you know occupied territory, puppet government, white flag of surrender, and capitulation are all law of war manual terms. There's only 4 ways that the military pairs with federal. That's executive orders, national emergencies, treaties, and proclamations. Well, those are the same 4 components of a presidential emergency action document. And those are 4 things that President Trump and the media have covered. They're not federal government terms. Why would President Trump be out of his mouth and the mainstream articles be talking about law war manual terms that are not federal government? Ding, 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 ding. Right? So restricting telecommunications is one of those. That is Hegseth right there, and it says only 15 reporters. Only 15 is a new article out. Only 15 reporters remain in the Pentagon after press pledge prompted walkouts. And that tells who they are. Only 15. Now, let me show you how this is all theater. You want to know how this is all theater? Guess who has a press pass? Do you see me at the White House? Do you see me at the Pentagon? Do you? No, you don't, do you? That's also how you know this is all theater. All right, now I can go. I can be around the military. I can be around anywhere. My press pass is the big dog pass. It's the big one. All right. Why would I when I know it's all theater? I don't have to, because it's all theater. All that is all the clean out of the deep state. So that's how cool that is. All right, now, exoneration. I've said it over and over. The only way you can exonerate President Trump, the only way you can exonerate him, it's going to have to be liberals to do it. It's going to have to be Democrats to do it. It cannot be a Republican, a conservative, a patriot, MAGA, a general, an admiral. It has to be the polar opposite that exonerates him. What did you see Hillary do? Did you not see Hillary's video? What did Hillary do? She praised him for the hostage situation. Bill praised him for the hostage situation. Jeb Bush praised him for the Iran situation. You've heard me for months and years now tell over and over, the only people who can exonerate him is the other side. All the liberals' heroes are going to fall like dominoes. And what have you seen? That's exactly what you've seen. So, some of us know, most people don't. The target audience is still dragging. All right, now here's another thing that happened this week that's really cool. The National Security Presidential Memorandum, -8. All right, President Trump issued a National Security Presidential Memorandum to pay the soldiers, to pay the troops, the military during this quote-unquote shutdown, which is not real. All right, it's all theater. But, national security. If Joe Biden was president, ladies and gentlemen, Joe Biden, if he was president in real from 2021 to 2025, he would have had the same authority and power as every other president. How come he does not have, to this date, a national security presidential order of succession? How? So, a memorandum, a national security memorandum, how could he meet with a joint chief of staff, which are your generals and your admirals? How could he meet with generals and admirals if he don't even have an order of succession? So for the people that thought it was real, quote unquote, Joe Biden is the first quote unquote president. I put quotes around that if you're new. That means he wasn't real. But in order for me to say his name, I put quotes around it, meaning he ain't real. It wasn't real. Central casting, actor. President Trump tells you over and over and over, central casting, central casting, central casting. You're watching a movie. It's all theater. It's all pre-planned. It's all strategic. It's all an operation. But for the people that don't know that yet, how come, quote unquote, Joe Biden is the first, quote unquote, president in United States history to not have an order of succession within any military domain? So how could he be meeting with generals and admirals if he don't even have an order of succession within the Department of War, National Security Council? How come to this date, on the archive page on your department is still named the Department of Defense, but it's going to be the Department of War, but it's an archive page, so therefore it's archived from the days when it was called the Department of Defense. How come on the archive page to this date, the most recent National Security Strategy booklet is from 2017? They put out during 2022 that quote-unquote Joe had one. Where is it? Why doesn't the Department of Defense, the Department of War now, recognize that? I guess because January the 20th, 2021, he didn't get a ride in Air Force One to D.C. First time ever. Amazing Grace was performed. He raised his right hand at 11:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is a violation of the 20th Amendment of the Constitution. The Constitution that all these libtards claim that President Trump is violating. They don't even know what the 20th Amendment says. All right. There was no review of the troops. All right. Immediately when the president raises his right hand to swear in and he takes the oath of office, immediately after the cannons start firing. There were no cannons start firing after quote-unquote Joe swore in. All right. The 4 cannons, 21 rounds, is a 21-gun salute by definition. It's performed by the 3rd Infantry Regiment, known as the Old Guard, the official presidential salute battery. They're the oldest unit in the United States Army, 1784. All right. The only 4 cannons, 21 rounds shown on January the 20th, 2021 was at Joint Base Andrews with President Donald John Trump with a red carpet rollout, and the media told you that's the official presidential salute battery, the 3rd Infantry Regiment, known as the Old Guard. And there were commissioned officers present. You can see them. There were 3 cannons shown. For the first time in United States history, they showed the cannons at Arlington, but the only cannons shown all day long for quote-unquote Joe were those cannons at Arlington. No commissioned officer present. That is a violation of Army regulations. My branch 600-25, 2-3 cannon salutes. Go look it up. There's to be a commissioned officer present. There was not a commissioned officer present. The soldiers were fat. All right, they were out of shape, fat. The uniforms were not real. They were not regulation, meaning they were non-regulation uniforms. They're not real. All right, they were moving around. We don't do that. There was no marching ceremony. They were all campmate tape, fat, out of shape, central casting. The first time in United States history that cannons were shown at Arlington, but they were shown to be the quote-unquote salute. So everybody thought that was a salute. It wasn't. 3 cannons at Arlington is a funeral service. All right. January this year, January the 19th, they showed the cannons. They showed the cannons on the 20th with President Trump. But they showed President Trump at Arlington on January the 19th this year. Why? See, they made January the 20th, 2021 an outlier. So on January the 19th, everybody focused on President Trump at Arlington. Did you see any cannons? No, you didn't. January the 20th, 2025. As soon as President Trump raised his right hand, even though he was inside a building, as soon as he's raised his right hand, the camera, the theater, the production showed you the 4 cannons in the National Capital Region, not at Arlington. 4 cannons. So now, for the target audience, you have one, what you thought was an inauguration in United States history, that has 3 cannons at Arlington and 4 cannons at Joint Base Andrews. That's why all those people in 2022 and 2023, you look stupid. You know who you are. Some of you are veterans. That's even worse. I told you, you're going to look dumb. It's better to remain silent and be thought of a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. Now guess what? I have you screenshot. Sucks to suck, don't it? Before I went viral, one of my sergeants said, Derek, you have a unique personality, and you're a cool dude, and you're just you're just fun to be around. And you just have that personality. And he was like, man, if you ever get a bigger platform, you need to honor all of our fallen, especially the ones that we know. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget my sergeant saying that. And I wear this bracelet right here, this memorial bracelet for one of our fallen, one of our sergeants. And he's the one who used to walk around and say, it sucks to suck. So that's where I get it from. It sucks to suck, don't it? See, if you knew what you're supposed to know, then you wouldn't look atrocious whenever it comes out. And if you would know what I know, which is all public, what ain't public is the intellect and how to put it together. However, but if you knew that and you put that together, then you'd be well ahead of everything before it rolls out. And then you also wouldn't be one of those that looks dumb in the comment box if it's you, right? So you can know. It's all public information. It's all public laws and orders. What's not public is the intellect, the initiative, and the drive to want to put it together. But it's all there. Everything's there. It's most certainly there. But everybody's still in that target audience. Not everybody. I got a lot of good followers, but there's a lot of people still in that target audience. You think it's real time, or you're just hanging on thinking that something big's just going to, just do like that, and you're going to be like, oh, there it is. Now I know, now I'm really going to follow Derek. And no, you got to study it, read it. They had to lay this out one by one, piece by piece. There's so much trash and so much garbage that the deep state was doing that if they laid it all out in a month even, I don't think they could do it in a month, but if they could, it would just overwhelm the target audience who don't even know how to think for themselves, can't critically think, can't strategically think, can't even think at all, some. So it had to be done this way. But see, so much people have forgotten about Hillary, Bill, and all they see is what mainstream's doing. And you're not looking at what you're supposed to know. Hillary, Bill, they're supposed to be retired to the average person. So what would be conflicting to their schedules that they can't do a deposition? Nothing. Nothing will be a confliction of their schedule. Nothing at all. Right? Now, someone could say that's an excuse. Okay, we'll go with that. But at the same time, again, it's showing you all this is strategically done. This quote-unquote shutdown, strategically done. Because if you know what a military operation is, if you know what a military occupation is, if you know what a continuity of government is, you know what all these things are, you know that we're still in it. Because President Trump, they validate it daily. Letitia James just happens to be one who validated it with the word capitulation. So you got to lose and divorce your emotions and feelings and not react to the actual story of Letitia James and go listen to what she said. Because when she said capitulation, validation right there. So the people who are already going, that trash, she did this and that, you're already lost, right? You're already trapped. But if you're sitting there listening to every word and you divorce your feelings and emotions and you just listen to the words and just pretend you didn't see who it was and you hear a key word in there, bingo. Capitulation. Bingo. This is part of the operation. This is all part of it. All right, so all these people are going to fall like dominoes. And, that's why I'm like telling you, man, you'll start smiling more and more. You'll start laughing more and more. You can't unsee it. You can't unread it. You can't unsee it. And you can't unknow it. Once you read, study, and you comprehend, you're going to be sitting there going, man, this stuff is so choreographed. And it's awesome. It's nothing bad, right? It is the clean out and the drainage of the swamp. That is what's happening. But you'll see it from that new perspective. And it's not even about perspectives because it's an operation. But for the standpoint of yourself, being where you are, it's going to be a perspective from that standpoint that you're going, whoa, I just learned this and I just learned that. And I just man. So you'll become an operative in another kind of manner because everybody is needed on the home front for the future. when President Trump, we're giving the power back, we're taking the power out of D.C. and giving it back to the people, you're that person. You're that. So therefore, you need to know these things. That way you can identify them in the future. I'm not where you are. I'm not in Maine. I'm not in Massachusetts. I'm not in North Dakota. I'm not in Washington State. I'm not in Oregon. Like, you got to be able to identify these things. And then when you learn this stuff and you become that pillar, right, then you will know what to do with it. Right? But everything you're watching, there will be verbiage, there will be context, and there will be terminations. There will be, terminations of the orders, executive orders, when it's ready to do that. But right now, everything that's happening, it's all choreographed. It had to roll out this way. But let me tell you, the positive side is President Trump will be 80 in June, obviously on the Army's birthday and the Flag's Day, so June the 14th, he'll be 80. All right. If you love him, if you support him, as you should, because he put his name, face, brand, image on this. That's what this is. It's a name, face, brand, image. The real President Trump is the one you see at the private golf courses. It's not the one you see at all these events and all these rallies and all these meetings. All right. That's all pre-planned. That's all pre-recorded. All right. That is not the real President Trump. Not him whatsoever. All right. But it's all good. Well, what I'm saying about that, what I'm bringing that up for, is that the name, the brand, the image. He's 80 years old this coming June. All right. If you look at life as quarters in football, first, second, third, fourth, he's in his fourth quarter of the game. All right. So when you look at July the 4th, 2026, talking about the 250th birthday, which he said would be a marker way back here. He said Memorial Day 2025 would be the first marker, and then July 4th, 2026. Very key, because of what we'll be celebrating, the golden age, and how people be acting, and the acceptance, and all these things. So looking where we are right now, and looking how he said just a couple months ago, he reposted, all roads lead to Obama. Read truth if you want to see military tribunals. What the Charlie Kirk thing was a test that every American passed, Republican and liberal, Democrat. You didn't pay attention to the goriness, even though it wasn't gory, but for the people who thought it was real, they didn't pay attention to that. No one hardly mentioned the goriness, the nastiness, and no one did that. You know why? Because you've been watching Yellowstone, Ozark, Walking Dead, and all these shows. You're desynthesized. So guess what you're ready for? What did President Trump tweet about, truth about the day before? What did he truth about? Quit trials. What did he say a month before that? I don't know if people are ready for the discipline yet. Quit trial. Oh, they're ready now. Oh, you're ready. You're ready for a quit trial. Trial in the morning, execution by end day of those who are going to be punished, the ones who deserve the punishment. You're ready for it. So see, there's going to be a moment between here and July the 4th, 2026. There's going to be a moment. There's going to be things that people are going to start seeing. That's why they're bringing Obama back into the picture real heavy. That's why they're bringing Bill and Hillary back into the picture. That's why Jeb Bush was brought back into the picture. All these people who kind of fell back into the backgrounds back here and not in it. You ain't heard about North Korea anymore. You ain't heard about Kim Jong-un. You ain't heard of everything's so strategic, right? All roads lead to Obama. Read truth if you want to see military tribunals. All by President Donald John Trump. It's all strategic. It's all planned out. This is all choreographed. It's in a blueprint. So in order for President Trump to have his name exonerated in real time, the real President Trump, what needs to happen? Disclosure, exoneration, all right, where he can be over here with his children and grandchildren, knowing that his name's been cleared. So he won't die knowing that his name hasn't been cleared yet. That, my friends, is called special operations. That, my friends, is called strategic operations. That, my friends, is what you're watching and witnessing. And if you love President Trump and you support him, as you should again, because he is the face, the name, the brand, the image of this whole operation, that's why he was put there. And they will exonerate him, where he can be that older man who put his name, brand, image on this, and back here get to sit there and smile and grin and go, I had your best interest the whole time. We had you the whole time, but it had to look this way for a reason. You didn't realize how deep and thick and dirty the swamp was. And you libtards out there, it could be your own child dressed in sheep's clothing, that it could be your own child, a wolf in sheep's clothing, sitting in your living room, and you wouldn't even know it. They could be disguised as your own child, and you wouldn't know it. So that's why you need people who can think critically, strategically, remove and divorce our emotions and our feelings, and go straight to the heart of what's being told, what's in the laws. All right, and that's why these were written, for future generations to say, hey, if you ever get here, here's what we did. I hope you don't get there, but here's what you do if you ever get here. And that's why all my new books are going to say the same thing. The new book, The Deplorable Pilgrims, that's out right now, same thing. If you hear this rhetoric, these are strategic and strategy. The Deplorable Pilgrims is more satire, but it's humorous, but it's real factual satire, saying, hey, if you hear this verbiage, you probably want to nip it in the bud before you give them an inch, because they're going to take 1,000,000,000 miles and skull drag your IQ the whole way. All right? You don't want that. So, hey, that's what it's all about. America first. The dash matters. You're watching a strategic special operation.